Wife told all our friends, "I'm not a real man because I'm a stay-at-home dad. Now I'm going to prove a point." Here I am, realizing that the person I built a life with has spent months, maybe even years, quietly tearing me down behind my back. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When my wife and I first discussed starting a family, we looked at everything logically. She had the better career, the higher salary, the benefits that could support us comfortably. My job was stable, but didn't offer nearly as much in terms of financial security. It was a simple choice. I would stay home with the baby while she continued working. A team effort, a partnership. We both agreed. And at first, it worked. I took on the role of full-time parent with pride, waking up for the late-night feedings, changing diapers, making sure our son was happy and healthy. All of it was my responsibility, and I embraced it. While other new parents struggled to find balance, I found purpose in knowing that our child was getting the best care possible. And my wife, she supported it. At least she did in the beginning. She used to tell me how much she appreciated what I did. She would come home after a long day at work and say how lucky she was that she didn't have to worry about things at home. She would tell me she couldn't do what she did without me, and I believed her. I thought we were on the same page. But slowly, things changed. At first, it was subtle. Little jokes slipped into conversations. Comments made in front of friends. She started referring to me as a house husband, which I didn't mind at first, but then the jokes started getting a bit more edgy. She would say things like, "I guess I'm the real breadwinner here," or "He's living the dream, staying home all day." She always laughed when she said it, and so did everyone else. But something about it never sat right with me. It wasn't just about what she said, it was the way people reacted. Some laughed along, but others gave me a look that made me feel small, like I wasn't holding up my end of the deal, like I wasn't doing enough. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was being too sensitive. But then came the night that changed everything. We were hosting a small gathering at our house. Just a few close friends, food, drinks, nothing unusual. At some point in the evening, I went upstairs to put our son to bed. When I came back down, I walked into the kitchen and heard my wife talking with a group of our friends. She didn't know I was there. One of the guys made a joke about how I had it easy, staying home all day while she worked. And instead of defending me, instead of saying what she used to, that it was a team effort, that we made this decision together, she laughed. And then she said it. "Yeah, I guess I just married a housewife instead of a husband." The words hit me harder than I expected. She basically said that I was just there to play dolly house all day. I stood there, just out of sight, as she kept going. She talked about how she never thought she'd be the one supporting a grown man, how it was kind of embarrassing that I didn't have a real job. Embarrassing. That's what she thought of me. She wasn't just making jokes. She wasn't just teasing. She was telling people, our friends, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't a real man because I stayed home and took care of our son. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't walk in and call her out. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I sat with it. I let the words sink in, and when I started paying attention, I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. She had been doing this for months, maybe longer. Every little joke, every offhand comment, every time she let someone else belittle what I did and didn't correct them. It wasn't just a joke to her, it was how she really saw me. And that's when I made my decision. If she thought I wasn't a real man, if she thought I was just some dependent she had to carry, then I am going to prove a point she won't forget. Because I am not just going to let this slide. I am not going to let her, or anyone else, make me feel small in my own home. I am not going to let the person I built a life with make me question my own worth. She wants to believe I am not capable of more. She is about to find out just how wrong she is. Edit. I've been reading through the comments, and I want to clear up a few things because a lot of people are acting like I'm just some lazy guy who refuses to work. That's not the case at all. My wife and I agreed on this setup before we even had kids. It wasn't something forced on her, and it wasn't some excuse for me to sit around doing nothing. When we found out she was pregnant, we sat down and had a serious conversation about what would be best for our family. She had the higher paying job, the one with benefits, career growth, and stability. My job, while steady, didn't come close in terms of income. It made financial sense for me to stay home while she continued working. We both saw it as a team effort. She was taking care of us financially, and I was taking care of everything else. Being a stay-at-home parent isn't just sitting at home. It's cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping, making appointments, and most importantly, raising a child. I was the one up at night with our baby. I was the one handling daycare drop-offs and pickups. I was the one making sure our home ran smoothly so my wife could focus on her career, and for a long time she appreciated it. She used to tell me how grateful she was that I was willing to step up in this way. But then, as time went on, that gratitude turned into resentment. She started making little comments, joking about how I had it easy, how she was the breadwinner, how she took care of a grown man. And that's the part that hurt. Not the fact that I stayed home, but the fact that she acted like it made me less than. Like I wasn't pulling my weight when I had spent years making sure she could thrive in her career without having to worry about everything else. This was never about me refusing to work. In fact, I've already gone back to work while still handling household responsibilities. The issue isn't whether or not I have a job. The issue is that my wife lost respect for me because I wasn't working in a way she thought was manly enough, and that's not something I'm going to tolerate. Update 1. After overhearing my wife trash me to our friends, I didn't confront her right away. Arguing wouldn't fix anything. She had already convinced herself that I was less of a man, and words alone wouldn't change that. I needed action, I needed proof, and I needed her to feel firsthand what she had been disrespecting all this time. The first step was regaining financial independence. I had spent years as the stay-at-home parent, managing the house, raising our son, and handling all the day-to-day responsibilities that kept our home running. It wasn't as if I didn't have a career before. I had worked in a stable job that paid well enough, just not as much as hers. When we agreed that I'd stay home, I left the workforce, but I didn't lose all my professional connections. I reached out to an old colleague, someone I trusted, and asked about remote opportunities. It didn't take long before I landed something. Nothing extravagant, but enough to bring in my own income. It was flexible, allowed me to work from home, and most importantly, gave me financial footing outside of what my wife provided. I didn't tell her. There was no need. She had already made it clear that she didn't respect my role in our family, so she didn't deserve to know what I was planning. I worked in secret, juggling my responsibilities as a father while slowly rebuilding a career she had convinced herself I couldn't have. I adjusted our household finances, set aside money, and started preparing for what came next. Then, I decided to give her a taste of reality. For years, I had handled everything at home: meals, cleaning, laundry, schedules, daycare pickups, doctor's appointments, bedtime routines. She went to work, came home, and didn't have to think about any of it. That was the luxury she had taken for granted. So, I gave her a week of what she thought was an easy job. I told her an old friend needed my help with a business project and that I'd be staying with him for a few days. In reality, I booked an Airbnb just a few miles away. I took my laptop, packed a bag, and left her alone with our son. No prepped meals, no lists of instructions, no reminders about daycare pickup times. Just her, our child, and the full weight of the responsibilities she thought weren't a real job. I didn't respond to every text immediately. I let her figure things out the way I had been doing for years. By the third day, she was struggling. The house was a mess. She was exhausted, and she was sending more messages than usual, asking when I'd be back. She wanted me home early. She couldn't keep up. I ignored the pleas. By the time I finally walked through the door at the end of the week, she looked worn down. I could see the frustration in her face, the exhaustion in her posture. I didn't even have to ask how it went. She had learned the hard way. That's when I told her the truth. I told her I had heard everything she said about me at that party. I told her I knew how she had been mocking me to our friends for months, maybe years. I told her I wasn't the failure she made me out to be. I'd been working, saving, and preparing. She had assumed I was dependent on her. She was wrong. She tried to backtrack, said she didn't mean it, that it was just a joke, that I was taking it too seriously. But she knew, deep down, that she had been exposed. The moment she saw that I had options, real, tangible options that didn't involve relying on her, her entire demeanor shifted. She realizes she has lost the upper hand, and I am not about to let her regain it. Update 2. After our confrontation, my wife tried to act like she was the one who had been wronged. She told me I had humiliated her by leaving her alone with our son for a week, as if I hadn't spent years handling everything on my own while she belittled me behind my back. She painted herself as the victim, acting like I had crossed some unforgivable line, but she never acknowledged the things she had said about me or the way she had treated me. At first, I thought she would come to her senses. I thought maybe she would reflect on what she had done, but instead she got defensive. She acted like I had betrayed her, as if making her experience what I went through every day was some kind of crime. She barely spoke to me unless it was to make passive-aggressive comments. When she did talk, it was about how I had gone too far or how I had set her up to fail. Not once did she acknowledge why I had done it in the first place. I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself, I just let her talk. I had already decided that I wasn't going to let her drag me back into the same cycle. I had spent too long letting her dictate how things were, letting her act like she was superior because she had the higher paycheck. That was over. I had my own job now, my own income, and I was making changes for myself, not for her. The first thing I did was start prioritizing my health. I got back into the gym, something I had neglected for years because I was always too busy taking care of everything else. I started dressing better, not for anyone else, but because I wanted to feel like me again. I reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with when I became a stay-at-home dad and let my social life fade into the background. Meanwhile, my wife was struggling. She thought things would just go back to normal, that I would keep handling everything at home while she reaped the benefits. When she realized that wasn't happening, she changed tactics. At first, she tried to be affectionate again, acting like we were the perfect couple, but it was so obviously fake that it just made me resent her more. She would suddenly start talking about how much she appreciated me, how she never meant to hurt me, but it was clear she just wanted control back. She wasn't sorry for what she had said. She was just sorry she had to deal with the consequences. Then, I got a message from someone I wasn't expecting. One of her close friends reached out to me. She had been at the party where my wife made those comments, and she told me she felt guilty for laughing along. At first, I assumed she just wanted to ease her own conscience, but then she told me something I hadn't known. That night wasn't the first time my wife had talked about me like that. For years, she had been making me the punchline of her jokes. Every time the topic of relationships or money came up, she would frame herself as the provider and paint me as some kind of dependent, like I was a burden she had to carry. She had made it sound like she was the real adult in our marriage and that I was just coasting along. And the worst part, most of our friends had just gone along with it. Hearing that was like a final nail in the coffin. Up until then, part of me had still hoped we could fix things. I had thought maybe she would realize how much she had hurt me and actually make an effort to change. But this wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a moment of bad judgment. It was who she was. She had spent years chipping away at my self-worth, making me feel like less of a man while she got to play the role of the strong, independent woman at my expense. And I had let it happen. That was all I needed to hear. I am done. I am seeing a lawyer tomorrow. Comments. Commenter 1. OP needs to leave. She gaslighted him with her explanation. The bigger betrayal is talking shit to her friends. Some people are happy living in denial, so if he wants to stay, then stay. She settled for a better life. She will jump ship if she ever finds someone better. Commenter 2. One of the best pieces of advice I've been given is that people in successful relationships choose each other every day. They choose to stay together, to work on issues together, to make decisions to support and strengthen the relationship rather than look outside. Obviously, this works best when both people are committed to the relationship. Commenter 3. That's such a fucked thing to say to friends though. Like if it was a one-on-one, but a group of friends you're definitely going to have to interact with in the future. Did they all understand that what she meant was it was an exaggeration and she didn't settle for you actually? IDK man, I am not saying divorce, that's crazy, but I definitely see if therapy is possible. Final update. Filing for divorce was the only real option left. My wife had spent months, maybe even years, belittling me behind my back, treating me like I was less than, and making it clear she didn't see me as an equal partner. After everything I had done for our family, all the sacrifices I had made, she still had the audacity to mock me in front of our friends. And for what? A few laughs? To make herself feel superior? She didn't see this coming. She had convinced herself that I would never leave, that I needed her, that no matter how much she chipped away at me, I would stay. The second she realized she was wrong, the desperation kicked in. The first stage was denial. She thought I was bluffing. She tried to act like it was just a rough patch, something we could work through. When she realized I wasn't playing games, she moved to damage control. She cried. She apologized. She said she didn't mean any of it, but I knew better. She had meant every word when she said them. The only thing she regretted was that I finally called her out. Then came the bargaining. She offered to go to counseling, to make more of an effort, to prove she appreciated me. But I knew she wasn't sorry for what she said. She was sorry for the consequences. If I had never overheard her that night, she would have kept doing it. She only cared now because she was losing control. She kept asking what she could do to fix things, but the truth was, nothing could fix this. The respect was gone. Even if she changed her behavior, I would never be able to forget how easily she had humiliated me. I would never be able to look at her the same way, knowing she had spent years tearing me down while smiling in my face. Things got worse when the reality of divorce settled in. She wasn't just losing me, she was losing the life she had gotten used to. The dynamic where I handled everything so she could focus on herself was gone. Now she would have to do it all alone. And that scared her more than losing our marriage ever did. She tried guilt. She said she never wanted to be a single mother, that I was putting our son through unnecessary pain, that I was ruining our family over a few jokes. But this wasn't about a few jokes. This was about years of disrespect, about a complete lack of appreciation, about finally realizing that I deserved better than to be treated like a doormat. Her friends turned on her. The same people she had laughed with started distancing themselves. Some even reached out to me, saying they felt uncomfortable with how she had spoken about me, and that they respected my decision to leave. That only made her angrier. She wanted to control the narrative, to make it seem like I was overreacting, but she couldn't deny what she had done when everyone had heard it firsthand. When she realized she couldn't manipulate me into staying, she switched to anger. She blamed me for everything, said I was throwing away our marriage over my ego, said I was proving her right by running away instead of being a real man and working through our problems. But I wasn't the one who had disrespected my partner for years. I wasn't the one who had treated my spouse like a joke. The divorce process was messy. She tried to make things difficult, dragging her feet on paperwork, arguing over custody, and making every step as frustrating as possible. But I was patient. I had already started rebuilding my life before this even began, and I wasn't going to let her slow me down now. I got a good lawyer, made sure my rights as a father were protected, ensured that I wasn't going to be treated unfairly in the split. I wasn't out to hurt her, I just wanted what was fair. And once the dust settled, I got exactly that. Now I'm in a completely different place. I've built my career back up, and I'm in the best shape I've been in years. I've made new friends, surrounded myself with people who actually respect me, and created a life where I'm valued instead of mocked. As for my ex, she's struggling. She wanted to be the career-focused one, but now she has to balance work and parenting on her own. And for the first time, she's realizing how much I actually did. There's no one picking up the slack anymore. No one making sure everything runs smoothly while she focuses on herself. She got exactly what she wanted, a household where she's the sole provider. And from what I hear, it's not as easy as she thought it would be. I don't take pleasure in her struggle, but I do think it's ironic. She spent so much time making me feel small for being a stay-at-home dad, acting like my role wasn't important, like I wasn't pulling my weight. Now she knows the truth. The best part? I don't have to prove anything anymore. I proved my point the moment I walked away. I proved it by rebuilding my life, by refusing to let her words define me, by showing that I was never the failure she tried to make me out to be. I've moved on, I've learned from this, and I'll never let someone treat me like that again. Edit. Looking back, I don't regret leaving. What I regret is not seeing it sooner, the slow shift in how she saw me, the way her words turned from appreciation to condescension. I spent years thinking we were on the same page, that we were equals, just with different roles. But to her, I was only an equal, as long as I was working outside the home. The moment my contribution became something she couldn't measure in paychecks, she stopped valuing it. That's not the kind of marriage I want. That's not the kind of partner I want to be with. I won't lie and say it's been easy. Starting over is never easy. Adjusting to single life, balancing work with being a parent, and rebuilding my confidence after years of being treated like I was less, it's been a process, but I'd rather struggle alone than stay in a marriage where my worth is measured by an outdated idea of masculinity. For anyone who's been in a similar situation, here's what I've learned. Respect is everything. If your partner doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter how much love is there. Love without respect turns into resentment, and resentment poisons everything. It erases all the good, all the history, and leaves you questioning everything you thought you had. My ex and I are civil now, mostly for the sake of co-parenting. But the dynamic is different. She doesn't get to look down on me anymore. She doesn't get to define my worth. And I think, in some ways, she realizes she screwed up. She got so caught up in appearances, in outdated gender roles, that she forgot what actually made our marriage strong. That's not my problem anymore. I'm focused on being the best father I can be, on rebuilding my life in a way that makes me happy, and on making sure that my child grows up knowing that their worth isn't tied to a paycheck, that there's no shame in choosing a different path, and that respect is non-negotiable in any relationship. I may have lost my marriage, but I found something more important: self-respect. And I won't let anyone take that away from me again.